I'm going to kick off today's webinar by reviewing our agenda. To start, we will be discussing the current state of tolling operations. We'll provide an overview of where things stand today and touch on some of the common challenges faced in tolling. Next, we'll explore opportunities for improvement. We'll identify potential areas where enhancements can be made and introduce some innovative solutions and technologies that address these challenges. Following that, we'll dive into a case study on the Golden Gate Bridge. Our speakers will describe specific innovations that have been implemented and the outcomes and the impact of these innovations on tolling operations and overall efficiency. After the case study, we'll outline the practical steps required to implement similar innovations in other tolling operations. Then we'll open the floor for Q&A, and we encourage you to ask questions and engage in this discussion. Finally, we'll wrap up with key takeaways from today's webinar. We'll recap the main points discussed and provide actionable insights and recommendations that you can take away and apply in your own tolling operations. Okay, before I move it over to our speakers, I'd like to introduce them and let them take the floor. So first we have Francis Tang, who is a principal consultant at RS&H with 20 years of experience in transportation engineering, specializing in transportation systems integration, including toll systems. Francis has worked on projects involving all electronic tolling managed lanes, public safety, and weight in motion systems. Notably, he contributed to the research and development of photo enforcement and an automated occupancy detection systems deployed globally. Francis is also an active member of the IBTTA and TRB communities. Tony Ahmed is a veteran systems engineer and transportation technologist with over 25 years of experience in tolling modernization and intelligent transportation systems. As the co-founder of ITS Roads, Tony leads innovation in toll operations and infrastructure. Tony's career includes key roles at Lockheed IMS, ACS Xerox, SAIC, and Leidos, where he contributed to major toll system deployments and advanced transportation research. Currently, he oversees ITS Roads' emerging technologies, including an AI-powered video analytics pilot at the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm really excited for our speakers to take over, and I'm going to pass it over to Francis.
Thanks, Dana. So welcome, everybody. Again, I want to take the time to thank everyone for taking time out of their day. I know everyone's busy today, but definitely want to welcome you, and let's get started here. So today's discussion, I wanted to start off with kind of looking at just the current state of our tolling operations, and a couple points I've added here on the screen are kind of more relevant to our discussion today, revolving around two new technologies. But as well, I want to encourage everyone here, feel free to jump on the chat and kind of as we talk through our discussion today, list some challenges that you may be running into with your day-to-day operations or your interactions with industry folks as well. So with that, I wanted to get started with some of the initial challenges that you may face, being limited budgets. We all kind of run under this one day or another. We have transportation agencies that have competing priorities. It could be ranging from trying to address aging infrastructure at their facilities, or even just trying to figure out how to allocate revenues, either coming from tolls or from other revenue sources to fund some other public transit services that may be tied into all their operations. As well, you want to look at kind of increasing operational demands. Combined with the budget constraints we kind of noted above there, agencies, they have to find ways to adopt and evolve in operating their facilities. The demands they're seeing today compared to kind of yesteryear. For example, in the tolling space, we went from manual toll collectors collecting cash and just kind of doing daily deposits to moving to more of a electronic tolling operations, where now we got to keep an eye on our different subsystems, and they're collecting more and more transactions per hour that we used to handle from a manual perspective. So we need to be able to, adopt these new hardwares and software approaches and allow that to kind of meet with the growing demands. And next, I mentioned that moving over to electronic tolling, it's also brought new challenges where we need to kind of develop additional fair and measurable performance metrics. We want to make sure that all this technology we're implementing and utilizing is capturing the data we need and accurately, especially in the tolling atmosphere. Those transactions, report to revenues that we collect and kind of what we mentioned earlier of our challenges of, help funding other initiatives they may have. So as well, with this technology we get to kind of leverage today is we're now getting the ability to capture more and more data points that we were not able to do in the past or found it difficult to do previously. So we want to take this data and be able to capture more and more of these points and help our agencies get a better customer experience, understand a little bit more dynamically what their customers are up to. As well, this data can allow agencies and transportation groups provide further insights. Everyone gets involved with long range planning or planning initiatives in general. So now that they're able to get some of these additional points, we want to kind of be able to plan for a better tomorrow for our customers and as well as the folks that need to operate the systems day in and day out. So as we looked at the kind of those challenges we touched on and we looked at these opportunities for improvement, I kind of threw up some words here. I touched on some of them just previously here, but as we're talking today of more of emerging technologies and how we can integrate technologies in our operations today, you know, we wanted to kind of also look at some of the other areas as we go into um, this modern age. I mentioned earlier we're going from more of a manual collection process in our tolling worlds to more of an automated process. So some of those items we want to improve kind of go around maybe cost-effective approaches. Can we standardize some of the hardware we're utilizing? Um, can we implement items that can be interchangeable? Can we look at hardware A and maybe in the future be able to quickly implement hardware B or have them work hand in hand with each other? As well, we want to look at it's kind of one of the main words I kind of have on the chart here in big letters is future growth. Everyone's really concerned with the future alignment of our systems and the technologies. Everyone wants to be able to adapt what they put in today uh, to be used further down the line. We want to be able to have that equipment and solutions kind of be utilized for a good length of time. We want to be able to take advantage of that. And as well, we want to pull back from kind of the hardware and software side of things and look at improvement sides of coordination between your groups and stakeholders. With every new technology, you want to make sure everyone's on the same page on where you're trying to go with that technology, how you want to implement it, how you want to utilize it, and make sure that the objectives that everyone's agreed on are going to be met, and as well acknowledge the constraints you may need to work under um, when implementing this technology. So a technology that may be implemented for agency A over here may have a different set of constraints or objectives to agency B that may want to implement a similar technology that they're looking into. As well, we want to kind of touch on areas of improvement under utilization of AI and cloud integration. Looking back historically in our tolling industry, a lot of our systems were on-prem. A lot of our data we're collecting and process were all on-prem. And introducing AI and cloud now provides opportunities to be a scalable solution to allow us to get more accurate data in a more real-time kind of setting. Previously, there was quite a lag of when we can acquire data, get it processed and analyzed, and then start looking at maybe operational inefficiencies or potential equipment failures that we wanted to identify quickly. Now going into more of an AI and cloud integration, you're getting more of that real-time analytics that can provide that. And really, anywhere remotely or on-prem, you get that access to that data pretty instantaneously. So looking at kind of the AI and cloud and on what we kind of just touched on here, I wanted to kind of turn it over to Tony as well. Tony brings many years of hands-on implementation and integration experiences. I just want to kind of get his viewpoint on some of the improvement areas from a technology perspective.
Thank you, Francis. That was a great insight on, I guess, looking at the future of tolling and giving that history of tolling and where we're headed. Yeah, like that's the question we're constantly asking ourselves. Like, what does all the cloud mean? What are all these SaaS models that are coming into our industry? And how do we utilize some of those tools that are being used by other industries or being adopted by other industries, and we don't see a lot of that in tolling now. And some of the latest RFPs that come out, they do want you to touch on cloud computing, some of the SaaS tools that exist out there, kind of trying to, leap or bridge it into this, new horizons. So with cloud computing, like you touched on, it's scalable. You can stand up tools where traditionally when we had to provide an on-prem server or do some customization for data analytics, that is all in the cloud, and it's easy to stand up, it's easy to roll out, it's easy to implement, and those are all the tools that are available in the cloud. In tolling is a little bit behind adopting a lot of that, and that's where we're coming in and saying, here are a few applications that we're experimenting with, and here are the results and what efficiencies they're bringing to you and what advantages your agency can have or benefit from. Yeah.
Thanks, Tony. So with that, kind of being able to kind of get a general view of what our industry's been up to, kind of want to bring up next our case study and kind of hone in specifically on a unique case here with the Golden Gate Bridge. So we partnered with the Golden Gate Bridge and ITS Roads to help bring some innovations to some of their operations there. For those that aren't familiar with the Golden Gate Bridge, it's an iconic bridge that claims many visitors every year. It's also a tolled facility. As you can see here, they're currently tolling in the southbound direction at the bottom of the screen, and that's going into downtown San Francisco. And then just above it are the northbound lanes going north onto the Golden Gate Bridge and heading up north into Marin County. So for the Golden Gate Bridge, they are currently implementing a third-party in-ground traffic detection system. And this system's providing their leadership with traffic counts on a daily, monthly manner. This is important for them because they take this information and use this for planning purposes and as well give kind of insights from a daily, weekly perspective on how the traffic's been operating in the facility. So fortunately for them, with the toll system in the southbound direction, they do have a secondary source to help kind of verify what this in-ground system's been up to. But in the northbound side, they have no other basis. So this kind of brought a concern to them as they're using this for planning purposes and some of these key decisions that they're going to make kind of rely on this data. They approached the RS&H team and kind of wanted to ask if there was something out there that can kind of help verify that the system is in fact counting accurately as it needed to be. So as we met with their leadership, we kind of got their criteria, what they were looking for. and this kind of solution they wanted to put in, and what duration they were kind of doing this case study for. And with that, we kind of took that all back, and with ITS Roads RS&H, we had provided a solution to the Golden Gate Bridge, which consisted of a camera system that employed a video feed over multiple lanes, piping back to a cloud-based AI analytics server. Um, Golden Gate Bridge, with their technologies, they wanted to introduce this first as a pilot. Again, they wanted their leadership to get a hands-on feel of what new technologies are out there, what were the capabilities, and as well, kind of some of the other items in their solution they wanted to address was something that was budget-friendly, quick to deploy. Fortunately, the Golden Gate Bridge had some existing power and communication infrastructure where we were able to utilize and allow us to quickly get the hardware installed and up and running, and piping that data back to the analytics server to start getting some counts for them. As well, they wanted to see what technology provided a scalability. They initialized this pilot for the northbound direction, as we mentioned, didn't really have another baseline, but since they were able to experience that, they wanted to keep the option open to expand it maybe in the southbound or other areas of their facility. And this kind of led to the last point I have here with additional data intelligence. So traditional counting systems, are good at one thing. They're able to count the vehicles in the lane. When we kind of showed them the camera-based solution, and with the advancements in AI technology and learning, we told them that, or showed them that the system is capable to actually grab additional data points that could be useful. One in particular was, along with vehicle traffic counts, the system was able to kind of give them classification data. We were able to determine, the number of cars, trucks, buses, even motorcycles, right down to pedestrians and bicycles could be counted as well as additional data intelligence points that they weren't having access to previously. So that was another feature that we were quick to add on. It wasn't adding additional costs to them. It was just a matter of training the system to also capture those different objects. And we were able to kind of set this up for them very quickly, get it up and running, and start pulling in that data. So this wanted to kind of start giving you a view of the initial pilot. And here you're seeing kind of a screenshot of the northbound camera. I wanted to kind of give the folks an idea of where we were kind of capturing the traffic count. So I kind of highlighted in the image there the detection region where we were looking to count. And this was in this general area where their existing counting system was that they were looking to baseline. So it seemed logical that we wanted to get our counts as close as we could to where they were and give us more of an apples to apples comparison. So over the next couple slides, I'm going to turn it back to Tony and kind of give us more of a under the hood look of the AI solution and kind of what features and capabilities we were able to provide Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, thank you, Francis. And I do want to emphasize and point out that there's nothing actually wrong with traditional systems out there, that are doing the vehicle counting and the traffic counts, especially when it comes to magnetic sensors. And, radar, there's LiDAR, there's many systems out there that does this. But we do know that everybody is, headed the direction of AI and video analytics in bringing in those live feeds. I mean, we have cameras everywhere. Why not utilize it? Why not use it? What you see with your eye, the system can see the same thing. And, not only, as Francis mentioned, we're not only doing counting, but we are identifying objects. By identifying, we're classifying objects. In this scene, this is all under the hood for, the system. Once we establish communication at the site and we bring in those video feeds, there are many different formats of the video feeds that we bring in and feed into our backend data analytics system in the cloud. And by the way, this can be also on-prem, yeah, because we know some agencies might not like to export that data. So it's possible to do it on-prem, but we go with the cloud feature because it's easier, it's quicker to deploy. And you see in the scene, most of these vehicles that you see a green bounding box around, we are recognize or classifying them at 100%, all of these vehicles in the scene. And once we identify that object and we say that's a car, truck, whatever it is that we wanted in our under the hood to identify. In other words, if we didn't want bicycles to be identified, we remove that. But if we wanted to add bicycles be tracked and those objects be classified, we will put them in the scene and add it to our analytics when we're doing the system configuration. And then another thing that we built here, once we start tracking the vehicles, we have different applications at the scene. So we know the behaviors of the vehicles. Either we are counting the vehicles. For example, that one vehicle you guys see with a red bounding box around it, that's a sudden lane change because the lane is closed and vehicles are moving at high speeds, coming down, and that vehicle just jumped in front of them. And it could be a safety concern, yeah? Maybe the agency wants to see that data where before they wouldn't see that data. Francis, we can maybe go to the next slide. So once we start tracking these, identifying the objects, then we track these objects. And just like your traditional loops, like, we draw barrier lines, and as vehicles go through these barrier lines, we count them in. Now, in this scene on the Golden Gate northbound, you guys see lane 1 all the way. There's N is 0. Well, that's a lane that either gets moved to the northbound or southbound, where with your traditional magnetic sensors, you would have to go out there and kind of implement and then figure out what direction the vehicle is going. You might need 2 magnetic sensors so you can, figure out direction. With this, we just simply drop another line, and now we know, we're tracking vehicles in that lane as well. And these are lane counts, as you can see, and then we do a barrier line so we can check lane counts against the big barrier line. So it's multiple checks, so we have more confidence in the data that we are collecting. And then, for example, that ramp that's oncoming at the last minute, we're counting vehicles there too. So there's multiple points of data that we can collect in the scene and, provide it to the agency. Francis, maybe we can, yeah. So here, again, we have another vehicle jumping at the last minute in front of fast-moving traffic. And that's a safety concern. That could be a near miss. But that we provide that data, we provide a timestamp for that data. We send a warning and alert of that data to the agency. So that's another data point that we are collecting. Here, again, this is a night shot. One of the things, when it comes to object detection and counting, how do you deal with objects at night, different lighting conditions, different environmental conditions? Well, we constantly improve the object detection models on the back end. This is under the hood. This is not something that the client sees. This is our cloud. And we go back, and this is what we did actually when we were doing the pilot at Golden Gate southbound. We were training our models for nighttime, for fog, for rainy weather, to improve those models. And maybe in later slides, you'll see once we had the model working efficiently and it was improved, we started collecting data, and the system was locked down. We weren't making any changes. We collected data for a few months, and data was being downloaded and compared to the traditional systems that were installed there to feel out the accuracy of the system.
Thanks, Tony. So now that you kind of got a visual of kind of under the hood of the system, kind of wanted to summarize a little bit on the analysis side of for what we did for Golden Gate Bridge. So also wanted to show here, as Tony mentioned, the slides previous was kind of what we kind of do behind the scenes. And here is kind of more of the user interface. This is kind of the dashboard system that Golden Gate and other users would have access to. This is a fully configurable dashboard. Primarily for Golden Gate Bridge, they were looking to get hourly counts and daily counts. So a lot of the portals you're seeing here are kind of referencing that. And then, as we mentioned, for the pilot, primarily counts were the main objective, but we also kind of mapped for them the different vehicle types that we were able to count for them and show that represented on their dashboard. So this kind of gives them that nice quick view, that near real-time view that someone maybe in their executive leadership every morning wanted to log in, get a quick view of how historically the traffic was moving for them, and help them kind of give that picture to maybe into other meetings may have walking into that day or that week. So this was definitely a great benefit for them, just being able to get this kind of information at their fingertips.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Francis, I want to add to that. And this is all customizable. Yeah. So you have all your data points, what we showed in the previous slides, from under the hood. It all gets into a database and it's in near real time. I hate to use real time. Yeah, there is no such thing, but in near real time, and that data is being pulled on these dashboards, the end results to the customers. They can go in and download if they want any of these performance metrics or the metrics downloaded in CSV and JSON and other formats because they want to take it and feed it to other tools and they can do further analysis if they like. But this is the dashboard is customizable. You can add many more graphs and charts to it and look at different metrics that the agency in particular is interested in.
So as well, I just wanted to quickly show the kind of some of the results we're providing. Golden Gate Bridge kind of meet their primary objective was to verify was their system they're currently using accurately counting. So this was just kind of part of our results pages that we had provided for them, and this kind of helps show kind of between the camera system and their baseline system from an hourly perspective what the counts were doing. And as you can kind of see, generally for the daily count, we were within definitely less than a 1% variance. Do want to note though, some of the variances kind of give attribute to we weren't synchronizing our time buckets with their system versus the camera system. So as counts maybe reached around the top of the hour, we may had a couple vehicles sneak in the previous hour's count versus the next hour's count on each system. That could have led to some of these variances. So these are just small things, but in general, the district was quite pleased with the results. Seeing something more like a greater percentage variance, 5-10% probably would have been more alarming. Kind of this showed them more confidence that what they've been receiving in the past is good to make the planning decisions that they were looking to do with this information. So we kind of went through our kind of case study, and I want to start trying to tie things all together from what we kind of initially discussed in the beginning of our challenges and our kind of improvements in the beginning, and how we got to apply it with Golden Gate, and kind of start tying it all with some of the key points that we may want to walk away as we're looking at implementing new technologies into our kind of day-to-day operations. So in the first area here, we kind of steps to implementing some new technologies is kind of giving some guidance from a budget perspective. These are kind of 4 items that, as we ran through this case study with Golden Gate Bridge, we kind of took a step back and kind of realized, here are some of the things that, for future projects and others that are looking to kind of get in the same area, where we want to kind of focus ourselves on. So first one here is you want to kind of identify the issues you're looking to address and solve. From a budget perspective, you definitely want to ensure that you're addressing the issues, but you don't want to get yourself in that pigeonhole where you're trying to address those one-off scenarios or those kind of 1% scenarios that could happen, but it's a rarity. Those kind of scenarios quickly add cost to your solution. And although it may happen, it's more of an anomaly that you can kind of address, and kind of sticking to your core issues at hand will help kind of keep you more within budget. Next, you want to kind of understand your end users and their expectations. Is this new technology going to be a solution for them that's more user friendly and summarizes the results that you're capturing? Or are your end users more technical and a kind of want to do more deeper dive and get some more analytics out of that data? So those are the kind of the items and expectations you kind of want to keep in mind as well as you're kind of planning this new technology out. And as well, you want to understand what's the service life expectation of this technology and the solution you're looking to implement. Is this more of a temporary kind of solution? Or temporary, I say it's something you're looking to implement for a matter of months or maybe up to a year or two? Or is this more of a permanent solution where you got to understand if you're looking to integrate it with your current system, what are the other items you need to take care of from a maintenance perspective, or other items that need to get that longevity you're looking for out of this solution. And then also you want to be more of a strategic technology adopter when we're approaching this from more of a budget view. We all don't need to be the first ones jumping in to get the latest and greatest solution out there. You want to kind of jump in when your agency is at a comfort level with this technology, or maybe one or two have concerns jumping into this technology right away. We need to get those addressed first before we kind of move forward with it. And with that kind of brings to the last point too, is don't be afraid to run a pilot. When you have people in your group, stakeholders or group members that are kind of on the fence there of, is this really going to work for us? Is this going to be, this is quite an investment we need to make. Maybe a pilot's another option to help, address those concerns or get over those fears for them. So don't be afraid to kind of work with your solution providers, your vendors, and your team to maybe run that kind of scenario as well. So in the end, everybody's comfortable and it does meet the needs and the objectives you're looking for. So from another perspective as well, I wanted to kind of leave with you guys is from kind of a technology perspective of, implementing something today into your current operations and seeing how we can also make that compatible for future growth. So here I've kind of through a couple of areas where you may want to consider from a technology perspective. First one being, can we utilize kind of a technology agnostic approach? Is there hardware, kind of I mentioned earlier, is there hardware from vendor A that we can start with and maybe integrate hardware B or use them separately or integrate them together to get the results we're looking for? And then it kind of leads to the scalability perspectives. Can we plan for scalability? Can we also, look at items that when we look at growth, are the foundations there for us to add on to that? A good example is a simple network assessment. Our case with Golden Gate, they use an IP-based system. We were going to the cloud. Is the benefit of scalability of, can we get the infrastructure for the network system in place today where we can easily add on additional components and solutions without having to overhaul that portion? Keeping that approach of starting small and kind of going bigger, starting with that core use case we had, and then looking at the investment point of view, strategically kind of with that scalability of starting small. We don't have to put as much of an initial investment in, or funds were available for this fiscal year to handle this portion, and then we can scale bigger when funds get available in the next fiscal year, perhaps. Those are kind of the items to help harness that technology, get it in and help expand it at a later date. So, and kind of building onto that initial use case I mentioned before, Golden Gate's primary use of this pilot was to count the vehicles and verify with their existing system. They soon discovered that there were other items that were able to utilize the object counting for the vehicle types, or looking at bicycles or pedestrians. So that allowed them to kind of keep that in mind of, now that we have the system in, we can easily add more cameras if we needed to in different areas of our facility, and get these different use cases and get this different information to help kind of get that bigger picture of the utilization of the facility. So at this point, I wanted to kind of open up. Dana, I know you've probably been tracking the chats and the QA as I've been presenting here. Wanted to open up for any questions or discussions that the good of the group could benefit from.
Yeah, so we have received a couple of questions. I'm going to start with the first one that's in the chat from Antonio, and his first one is, does RS&H and ITS roadside revisit the classification models that were developed as more data is collected?
I can answer that. Yes, we're constantly looking at data as we're collecting it. We're keeping an eye on those metrics. And if we see that the counts are off, or we're not classifying certain things, maybe we're mixing a truck with a bus, we go back and retrain the model. So as more data is being collected, we're improving the model constantly. As Francis showed that trend line, that we were comparing it to the traditional magnetic sensors. Now, again, that wasn't for classification, but even counting those objects, we were neck to neck with the traditional systems. Another thing I do want to point out, when it comes down to, vehicle classifications, originally the system was just for vehicles, And then we said, we got to go away from that model. And what we're doing is we're doing object recognition, because it's not just vehicles that we're trying to obviously recognize or classify. There are many other objects that agencies are interested in, and there's other parts of the industry that are not interested in vehicles, but maybe they want to look at my how many coffee people walked in with a coffee mug into an office. That's a different application. So we're using object detection as the model.
Okay. Another question we received, how many cameras were utilized for the pilot, and what was the timeline for the system setup?
So for the initial pilot, we focused on the northbound direction, and actually we had utilized only one camera in that direction. So we were capturing, I believe it was up to 5 lanes there, depending on that switchable lane as well that Tony had shown us earlier. But yeah, we were able to capture that with a single camera. Installation itself, we had the fortunate ability of having power and comms available to us. Those are typical long lead items to coordinate when you're trying to get a system like this up. But having that availability really shortened the time frame to get it up and running. I think it was just a matter of weeks, really, between coordination and getting all the equipment out to the facility to get it up and powered on, and started really tuning the system at that point. So it was very, very quick turnaround. Again, I thank our partners for the coordination efforts and utilizing what we had to really get that up and running.
Yeah, another thing to touch on that, sorry, is, if you have your own existing cameras and they meet some of our criterias for that, stream link, we can utilize whatever you have out there. So we look at that before we even say, let's install this camera. Like Francis said, once we have that video feed and it makes sense and it meets our specifications, it's a matter of hours and days to get the dashboards going and start counting vehicles for you and classifying.
All right, I'm going to ask you another question. You had some discussions around the high speeds you saw on the southbound direction at the plaza. Does the system capture that type of information, or was that strictly through speed detection devices?
Currently, we are not doing speed detection, although we can. We feel like the accuracy might not be there, plus or minus, a little bit of error, but we're working on that. And I think in the new releases of our application coming up in by fall this year, we're going to be focusing on providing speed. Like again, we can provide speed, but we don't feel confident and at least in the 99 or above 95 percentile on the exact speed. So we're holding it back and trying to perfect the model before we give it to our clients. We focus on quality in that sense.
Okay, we got another question in the chat that I'm going to ask. Does the wireless technology exist for tolling operations, or only the traditional systems that utilize overhead gantries and cable and conduit to power?
If I understand that correctly, I think actually we aren't limited to a gantry size. The solution that Tony has here, and it was just we were fortunate enough with Golden Gate to have that infrastructure in place. But thinking other scenarios, I know from a traffic perspective, and I mentioned earlier more of a temporary basis. There is capabilities of using wireless technology as a cellular, or even as Tony mentioned, kind of doing a localized capture and then bringing that back and then further processing it through the AI system. So yeah, we're not limited to kind of infrastructure that's there, but it does help depending on the timelines to get stuff up and running, or kind of like I mentioned before, is it a temporary setup or is it more of a permanent setup? The system is flexible to kind of handle those scenarios. So definitely not out of the realm to kind of use this in different applications.
There's lots of questions coming in, so I hope you're ready for some more. Have you considered using a combination of LiDAR and camera using sensor fusion for better object detection for when it's raining or foggy?
Absolutely. We're always looking at LiDAR. Actually, we have partners that bring in not only 2D LiDARs, but 3D LiDARs to do some of that detection because of the, and you're not going to have those weather issues in all regions. Some environments are different than other client sites. So we can do a combination of LiDAR and video. Right now, we're focused on video, but definitely our algorithms and our backend is designed to bring in LiDAR data and fuse it with our video to improve that performance.
Okay, another question for you. Was there any interoperability of the system you discussed with the tolling system at the plaza? And if not, could that be something that could be done?
Francis, we did not do any integration with the existing toll system, but the system has rich APIs, and we can do that integration with any tolling system. For example, if there's transactions you guys want to tie into and sync up with this, just like the standard, I guess, video audit systems that currently are deployed in tolling applications or tolling agencies. This is fully capable of that. So we have APIs that can do that.
Okay, another question. If you were to identify the biggest challenge in the development of a solution, like what you discussed for Golden Gate Bridge, what would that be?
I think kind of what I kind of mentioned before, and kind of as I tied things together, I think one of the bigger challenges is just getting everyone on the same page and get everyone coordinated with this technology. You kind of, when you get into a group setting, you kind of get the mixed feelings of this is great for us, or others that are on the fence, and just trying to get everyone again to that comfort level and understanding its capabilities and what it's going to kind of provide data wise for them. I think that was kind of the bigger, for our case study with Golden Gate Bridge. I think that was more or less the big thing. I think technology nowadays, it's able to evolve quicker than it has kind of before. So I think that's becoming less and less of a constraint. I think it's just trying to get everyone comfortable with that kind of change.
All right, I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions before we do our key takeaways. So the next question I see in the chat is, how accurate is this system in detecting and classifying pedestrians, bicycles, scooters, and other non-motorized traffic?
The models are well trained to do all of that and more. We do even strollers and wheelchairs, and we can add more to our model. If a customer came in and said, I don't know, I just want to give an example. I want to see red walls, and we will train that model to do that as best as it can. But for pedestrians and bicyclists and scooters, not just our model, but all the AI models that exist today, custom or open source. They've been really focused on pedestrian, bicyclists, and on and on. So those models are well done. I mean, you're going to get, depending on what kind of video you're bringing in lighting, again, environmental conditions, you're going to be at 99, 100% most of the time. And that's what we've been seeing.
Awesome. Okay, I think that's all the questions, but I'm very impressed with the amount of questions that we did receive. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Francis, to provide our key takeaways.
Thanks again. Again, yeah, definitely appreciate the questions and the points here. I really love it when the community kind of engages, and again, this is a benefit for everyone. So with that, I want to kind of summarize some of the key points here, takeaways, as we kind of conclude our discussion today. So first and foremost, don't be afraid to start small, and expand your system later on. We continuously talked about comfort level with your stakeholders and your group members, looking at maybe doing a pilot to get that comfort level up. So those are kind of all encompassing of starting small and getting everyone comfortable with that solution and that technology. And then later being able to expand it, keeping scalability and other factors in mind that can quickly adapt to your system and your operations. And then kind of what we kind of had in the Q&A here, just we understanding that video AI and this technology, it's been around for a while. It's just up until more recently, it's becoming more and more cost-effective option for agencies and folks to utilize. And Tony had mentioned, he's able to train different objects, and we can quickly take that input and get into the model and start training that and start capturing that data point. So definitely a plus to be able to kind of get that to fruition quicker. As well, be a strategic technology operator, adopter. I really like this takeaway here is, don't be the first just because it's the latest and greatest. I keep harping on making sure everyone's at a comfort level. Everything's within budget that you're looking to address your solutions with. All that strategic planning and all that can, in the end, benefit everybody. So, and then finally, go at your own pace. I harp on being at the comfort level. It's been true with our case study with Golden Gate, and just something in general practice you want to get accustomed to is make sure everyone that's involved is comfortable with what you're looking to adopt and bring in. And in the end, it's just going to benefit everyone in the end and get that additional data points and information that you couldn't have done previously and kind of move forward with better planning and better initiatives and better operations. So again, I want to thank everyone. I definitely want to take the time to if you need to reach out to Tony or myself. There's also a QR code here. We're always improving our webinar series. If you want to take the time to fill out a quick survey, all feedback is very appreciated. And hopefully, we'll definitely see each other soon, and we'll like to put on more of these kind of webinars for the group. And I really, again, thank you all for taking the time to join us here today. And I hope, if anything, there's a couple of key takeaways you were able to take from this and go talk to your clients or adapting your own operations. So again, thanks again for joining.
Thank you.